Rediscovering Yugoslavia and the Balkans through monuments. Hey there, and before starting, please take your time and read this. Thank you. Like every story has its premise, here's mine. Here's me nowadays. My name is Luca, my nickname is Steven, and well, I'm not a cat. And well, here's me in the year 2011. So in the same exact year 2011, by a complete happenstance, I ended up reading this article from, well, not BuzzFeed, but the original version on Crack2, a website which doesn't exist any longer, and I've had to recover this web archive version of it. In this article, there were all of these monuments from former Yugoslavia, which look completely crazy to me and completely out of space. And let's say that due to their shape and my lack of knowledge in architecture, and also the fact I was fascinated by contemporary art, they got stuck in my mind in some remote part. Enough that years later I ended up discovering this website called Spomenik database, which actually explains a lot about all these monuments. All of these monuments basically represent in Serbo-Croatian the word monument itself, but not just that. In the former Yugoslav Socialist Republic, all these monuments were not just there to celebrate the struggle of partisans against Nazi-Fascist occupying forces, but they were also an architectural way to show optimism and righteousness of the locals against fascists, and also in a way that actually they should celebrate and educate people to the new vision of socialism, but not just that. As you can see also in this website you have a lot of information and it's really well done. And for many years these monuments went a bit in ruin. They were just left there abandoned also because of the Yugoslav wars. Here you can find the author, Mr. Donald Niebel. Definitely there are a lot of them as you can see in this image, and each single one has its own perk and its own style and its own meaning. They all celebrate the underlying topic of resistance against Nazi-Fascism, but as you can see by this image I opened up, they're all different and they're all nice in their own vision. As you can see by this image, in Podgorica, Croatia, my 14th Spomenik I saw, I actually wanted to celebrate myself and this whole story by also tagging the guys of Spomenik database on Instagram. I also asked him like, hey, I will do a video one day, and we accepted. So here it is, the whole trip, which lasted 69.07 kilometers. The whole video starts with me mumbling in my own village where I come from. Here's my car with all kilometers, and here's the representation of all the 69.07 kilometers I will later done. My first stop was quickly in Udine, where I was hosted by a friend of mine. Good stop, good reunion. I always recommend reunions with friends. Before getting into Nova Gorica the very next day, the first Balkan state of Slovenia, and a quick stop in Prieteniei Grad, a wonderful castle in Slovenia, where actually I enjoyed the time. But that wasn't my first destination. Actually, my first destination was Ilirska Bistrica. Here's my first Spomenik I saw in Ilirska Bistrica. As you can see, it is in a great condition, and it also represents the karst formation from nearby caves of Postojna and Škocjan. Itself, it represents the resistance against Italian occupying forces during fascism and Nazi occupation since 1943. Itself, underneath the monument, there is the rest in a crypt of all the soldiers which were killed during liberation of Ilirska Bistrica. And well, in the area surrounding the whole monument, aside from me doing one of the first strange poses during the whole trip, you can also see remains from all the liberating forces like this tank, and also some other monuments dedicated to the liberating front of the area, and some of the victims are also remembered on the stone. Afterwards, I moved to Rijeka, where I spent the night. Rijeka is a very nice city. Honestly, itself, it has a lot of very nice buildings, like this theater, and also this very wonderful promenade, which I completely recommend to everybody to go, where you can actually enjoy a wonderful sunset, while actually spending a very nice time. By the end of the day, as you can see soon, I also started my first kebab eating, because why not? Well, the very next day I woke up before the sunrise in order to get to a wonderful Croatian place, but before getting there I took this wonderful picture in Bunica, and a few hours later I was in Plivica Lakes, a UNESCO heritage site, which is wonderful, and I'll let you enjoy it very soon, but sadly it's too crowded. So I hope you can get there and actually enjoy it at its fullest, but without so much people. Later I got to Ziljava aerodrome, which is amazing on its own. It also has this Douglas waiting us, which makes no sense, but well, it's cool to have it. Inside you can have also a picnic or take some pictures like I did. Anyway, aside from these pictures you'll see very quick, and some of these I pretend to say very cool, you can get to the nearby aerodrome and its own big landing lane, where you can actually see also the entrances for the bomber jet fighters, which were here. And this base was supposed to resist to nuclear attack from Warsaw Pact forces and NATO. And aside from me imitating Will Osprey, you can see these tunnels continuing for so long. Yeah, also the area is quite abandoned. And since the area is close to a border, during the 1990s Yugoslav wars, it was a bit mined. As you can see, here is the actual border, here's the buffer zone. And well, despite the sign you'll see in some moments, basically there are still some mines, so in case you go there, please be careful. On the way to Zadar, I ended up also having some viewpoints on the Dinaric Alps, which look fantastic. I also recommend you this part of Croatia, which is a bit not known to the masses. Also you have these gulfs, which reminds me a bit of, Norwegian fjords, which enters into the land and constitutes these wonderful places. Also you have these wonderful bridges which look astonishing, and I would definitely recommend you, like this guy on a boat, to get here. Later I got to Zadar, which I honestly adore, and I don't know what to say. It's a wonderful city, it looks amazing at the sunset. I think the people over there are super nice. It has this Roma rest and this wonderful cathedral as well. It looks super chill. I saw people having swim, and honestly I should have done the same. You have wonderful stages like this guy, and well, what can I say? I really wish to come back. Also, you have a lot of people here. You have like this famous wave thing, but it doesn't probably sound like it's promoted. And yeah. The very next day, I woke up early in the morning to get to several destinations. My very first one was Split, which you can see here by Froggyland. Besides that, I went there mostly to do a big meme of myself when I end up eating banana split basically by Diocletian Palace. Aside from the meme itself, I have to say Split is a very nice city. I recommend you all to go. If you have a chance, just go. After that, I approach southern Croatia by heading to Peljesac Most, the new bridge connecting the two parts of Croatia. But it wasn't my goal. Actually, I wanted to go to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and especially to Neum, which is often made a meme from this page, Terrible Maps, which they posted 25 times, and they pretend it's funny after 25 times. But, well, actually Neum exists, and I wanted to prove to that page that actually there is also a sea in Bosnia-Herzegovina. It looks like this. And not just that, I decided to swim my fat ass into it and look at the Peljesac Bridge in the distance, which I indicate here. So, sea exists in Bosnia. But also not that. Here I was approaching the Republika Srpska part to get to my second Spomenik, which, well, is very deep into the Dinaric Alps and deep in Bosnia, in the city of Tintiste, or well, let's say the village of Tintiste. And here is my Spomenik number 2, which I saw in the village of Tintiste. It is entitled to the 3,301 victims during the Battle of Sutjeska, which happened to be in 1943, where Tito escaped in a battle which saw 22,000 partisans fighting against 127,000 occupying Nazi-Fascist forces. The whole memorial is fantastic. Here soon you can see all the brigades which participated in the next image. And that day I also met a lot of students coming from Belgrade and other parts of Serbia and Bosnia. Here you can see the triangular shaped museum, which sadly was closed that day, and the panorama is fantastic. On the way down I passed through a village of Gasko, and later on to Avtovac, where I actually ended up meeting a lot of cows. But then the border which Google Maps showed me actually was just for locals, so I have to come back, pass through the city of Bileća, where I saw this mural of Siniša Mihajlović, and then I ended up in the border between Bosnia and Montenegro, where I was expelled enough to get back to Kotor. I was expelled because I just had one entry in the passport of Neum. Here's a black cat from Kotor. Here's Kotor in the morning, which looks fantastic. And the very next day, I climbed up to try to get to the Mausoleum of Njegos, which is, to me, probably one of the very best things Montenegro has to offer. In this mausoleum, you can see all the mountains around you and basically a lot of Montenegro. Itself looks fantastic. The view is incredible. The mausoleum and the crypt are amazing. So it's a must place to go in Montenegro. So recommend to go. Here how it looks on top of the mountain when you just go down and try to get to the former capital of the kingdom, Montenegro, Cetinje, which is a tiny village, but well, it was not my destination. As I approached the first Spomenik, the Spomenik in Barutana actually celebrates a series of battles. The first one happened to be in the Balkan War before the First World War, then the First World War, and then the second one. This area was occupied by Italian fascist occupation forces during the Second World War until those were replaced by German occupiers. The monument itself is not any longer that abandoned, as you can see. Something has been renewed, and that's a positive news because information about them were actually saying that it was in a bad condition. Luckily, it's getting better. I have luck to confirm for you this, and overall, I recommend you to pass through. Is also on the way to Podgorica, so you cannot miss it. Now there's a fourth Spomenik I visited in the city of Nikšić, close to the local cemetery of a town, where basically there is a strange event happened during the Second World War. Montenegrin and Chetniks were fighting against the fascist Italians occupying Montenegro, but then the Chetniks betrayed the partisans, mostly Montenegrin, and fight with Italians. In 1942, on May 9th, 32 men actually were shot and put in a mass grave in the local Trebieža hill, and this is a monument to remember all of them. 1,000 local people died throughout the period of occupation of Nikšić, and yeah, the monument itself is amazing, and due to the fact it's very tall, I had to shoot it vertically. In general, it deserves to get there. It's not sadly on the main roads in Montenegro. It's a bit dislocated, it's an hour away from Podgorica, but I totally recommend you to go there if you have the time. Also, if, or like me, if you're trying to reach Bosnia or, well, just get to the northeastern part of Montenegro. After Nikšić, very close by, there is the fifth Spomenik in Nikšića Župa, which actually symbolize 3 years of occupation from Italian forces first and then Germans. In this valley, the occupation was brutal, the oppression was lethal, and it was just liberated at the end of November 1944. The whole monument stands on a mound before of a dam, which you probably see it if you go along the valley, and it's on this little mound which also serves as a roundabout or parking lot. Itself is in a good shape and I recommend you to go. After this, I came back to the Kotor Bay, first in Dražinvrt and then to Perasht, where I end up to meet also another cat, and the fantastic islands in the bay. The whole atmosphere in Perasht is fantastic. Kotor Bay is one of the most unique places in whole of Europe. Possibly in the Adriatic is even crazier because it reminds of a fjord in Norway. And well, the cats are also the owners here. The very next day, I tried to get to Albania by passing through Zvijezdi Stefan, which I had a chance to see in 2018. Tirana itself is a very nice capital, very modern, very cool atmosphere. Of course, it's a Muslim country, and here the set of tone is a bit diverse, but very modern and traditional at the same time. As you can see, Pyramida, this old bridge, that mosque we saw, and the Skanderbeg Square. After that, I went back to Shköder, to the castle of Rozafa. It has an amazing view from the top. And afterwards, I had my own bath since the day was very warm in the lake Shköder in Zogai, and went back to Shköder, where I actually spent the night. It's a city of bikes. I completely recommend. Very nice atmosphere, and it's very nice in general. The very next day, I woke up to get to Uramejit Bridge. Then, on the way to Kosovo, passing through Bistrica, ending up at the border between Albania and Kosovo. The first city in Kosovo which I ended up to see was Prizren, which was heavily recommended by friends. The city itself is very nice. It also has this wonderful river passing by, remains from the war of 1999 in statues, rest from antique times, a castle on top, a very famous local mosque, which is portrayed here. But it wasn't my ultimate goal that day. On the way up to Skenderai, I also stopped by this memorial of UCK. I don't want to come to historical judgments, so be polite in the comments in case, but I just want to say that all these people in this big list died. And yeah, whatever is your stance, just think that all these people are dead and fought for their own reason, but we're all dead. My destination for the day was Mitrovica, which is a city divided in two separated souls. Is patrolled by NATO forces like Carabinieri from Italian forces of NATO there, doing KFOR. Is divided into sides. One is Serbian and one is Albanian. You can see these two different sides. But besides this, it was more peaceful than expected. And there was also a lot of symbolism to the local mines, which is also depicted and portrayed in the Spomenik, which you'll see later, not in this amazing Orthodox church in the northern part. The Spomenik number 6 in Mitrovica actually depicts the local miners' work, and it's on the hill dominating the northern part of Mitrovica, which is named by Serbian Kosovska Mitrovica. Itself is not in the most wonderful state possible, but the area itself dominates the city. It's impressive on its own. It's very, very tall, and you can still have a chance to go here and take a panorama picture like the selfie I took myself. Overall, Mitrovica is recommended despite all the forces of KFOR, and yeah, you can also get to Serbia if you're a local and you're of Serbian nationality. By the night, I went to Pristina, strange capital, completely new. This monument of newborn basically was changed into new broken republics. Here is a cathedral dedicated to Mother Teresa. Itself was very nice. Here is a famous monument to Bill Clinton, which is very popular in Kosovo for obvious reason. Itself very nice, just one pity, the traffic, which was very bad. But itself I completely recommend. The very next day, I left Kosovo. I was just there for a day, and I approached North Macedonia, which I ended up to be leaving in the very early morning in direction to Kruševo, my 7th Spomenik, which I ended up seeing in 2018. Here are the pictures from 2018. Me with more hair and at a diverse time of the year. Itself, the Spomenik is possibly one of my favorite. For me, it was a reason of heart to come back here, and I found it majestic on its own. This is literally one of the last documents I have from that era, and this picture especially. The Spomenik itself have two names. First one being Ilinden, which means Elijah, because Saint Elijah is on August the 2nd. And basically that was the date when the uprising against Ottomans happened to be in 1903. And the second one being Macedonium, as it has a very prestigious significance for the city of Kruševo and also for the whole of current Northern Macedonia. Itself is very colorful. The shape reminds of a bomb, and it has been a lot of discussion about the shape itself. It's very popular in Macedonia and possibly is one of the most popular Spomenik of all. The stained glasses are amazing, and it's hard really to describe how beautiful it is inside. Inside also the atmosphere is sort of like almost like heaven, because it reminds of very important and sublime feeling you can have inside. Is really incredible. Also, there is a tomb of Nikola Karev, which was the hero which participated in the uprising of 1903. Also, in the Second World War, there was a partisan detachment which liberated Kosovo in 1944, and also that's why there was a second Linden uprising coming off. The whole symbol itself depicts a lot of life and creation of life, and it's very colorful, completely recommended. And what to say about the Spomenik? It's fantastic, it's in wonderful condition, and whenever you leave or just enter Kosovo, you're met by this incredible mural. Then, the same day, it wasn't my own final destination, as I approached Sofia, which took me several hours to get to. And the very next day, I was exploring it after being hosted by a good couple of friends. I happened to be in Sofia during the day of a marathon, and I ended up to see some monuments, the famous cathedral, the symbol of Sofia, and other places. Here's the famous marathon I ended up to meet. Anyway, Sofia is recommended, always a place to go, different architecture style, very famous building and statues like this one, but it wasn't the focus of my staying. That's why I left after a few hours Sofia on a Sunday on direction towards a central Bulgarian place, which is also introduced by the famous Blagojev statue, which is that thing in the distance. Which is also introduced by the flaming socialist statue, which I took a pose in front of. And that place is, well, wait for it, Buzluja, the Pamiętnik, not Buzluja. It is the former headquarters of the Communist Party. It has been set on top of a mountain. Itself is not any longer available for an internal visit, where it's a famous stained glass with a famous symbol of communism, but rather is a place where just adventurer like me go, and it's pretty much abandoned. It's bits falling apart because of the big wind you can feel on this place, but overall it's impressive. It was a must place to go in all this tour of Balkans and monuments. And yeah, you can't do that much aside from maybe the musical festival in August you saw. It's a bit of falling apart. Sadly, there's a little security as well. But in general, I completely recommend you all to go. Also, the place has sadly bad roads to get to, so be careful if you want to go and think about it to go. On that night, I had to go to the city of Shumen, which I slowly approached. Why Shumen? Because it was close to the very next day destination, but also because it has a statue of the founders of Bulgaria, which is majestic. It completely dominates the city and explains how Bulgaria grew up to be in over a millennia a country, a nation. All of these statues here portray national heroes, national stories, which have been ongoing for a very long time. And it has been done during the 70s, also in a way which resembles socialist art and abstract art. In general, it's a very wonder, which is strange to meet in a city like Shumen, which had very little to none to offer, but this place is so outstanding that is completely recommend to go. Also see it this mosaics, which are fantastic. It also mix up different type of art together, and yeah, to be there is an experience on its own. You feel very little compared to these incredible big statues, and their symbolism is so majestic and depicts diverse era of Bulgaria, which is completely recommended. But again, it was not my own destination. I had to cross the Podul Prieteniei, bridge on Danube River, to enter Romania, which I entered in the Schengen border in Giurgiu to get to Bucuresti. For me, coming back to Bucharest is always a good decision. I like the city. I took the typical selfie with the parliament at the very end. I met the bakery dedicated to my own name, and well, have time to spend with a friend. And in general, I like Bucharest. Always good time there. Always recommend to go. I hope to be back soon. Anyway, I had to leave it the very next day. I took on the road on the highway A1 on direction to Curtea de Argeș, but it was not, of course, my ultimate destination. As you can see, I have a spoiler. In order to get to the spoiler destination, I have to meet an alert on my phone signaling there were bears on the road. Not just one, not just two, not just five, but an overall amount of 12. Even before getting the dam of Vidraro, where I just stopped and took a picture on top of it. Also here was a cool statue signaling the dam. But after leaving the dam, I also met 3 of the aforementioned 12 bears. Here's I took a zoom. There were people even giving food to them. I felt a bit scary, especially in this occasion when this bear looked a bit threatening to me. Despite I was in the car, this one was just chilling. But anyway, this was a big build-up on one of the best roads in Europe, which is Transfagarașan. Itself, it is too majestic to describe. As many people in the past did, this one indeed best roads in Europe, probably in the world. To get there, you have to pass also a tunnel. In any case, it reminds me of Stelvio in Italy, which is close to my place of origin, and it's astonishing. The temperature dropped from like 20 degrees to 0 on top, which was the lowest temperature I actually ended up to meet in this trip. I also ended up meeting some people from Krakow, the city where I live. Good bunch of people. They offered me a pickle as exchange. By that night, I stayed in Sibiu. Sibiu itself is very nice, or as they say, Sibiutiful. Very nice, very cozy. It has German origin, called Ermenstadt. And it's worthwhile for a day. The very next day, I woke up to go to this mountain formation called Rapparosi. Not suggested. They look cool, but I almost destroyed a car. And later to the Corvinilor Castellul, which is Corvin Castle, also famous for the typical history you can hear about Romania. Good castle in general. The only sad part was that it was during renovation, but well, still deserved to go. And by the end of the day, I end up to be in Timișoara, one of the 3 European capital of culture for 2023, with 2 others, which I completely forgot. But in general, Timișoara also deserves a visit. The city itself is very, very nice. And yeah, I ended up the day eating in a cool Romanian restaurant. The very next day, I woke up before the dawn, also meeting police, in order to get to the Danube Gorge in Romania, in Orshova. The new gorge is possibly one of the best and most underrated places in all of Europe. The road in both sides is fantastic, but in order to get out from Romania, I have to pass through a Schengen border on a dam between Romania and Serbia to get to this place here on the right, the one you see here, which is, wait for it. the Tito Spomen Park in Serbia, my 8th Spomenik. Despite this looking on Google Maps, which looks a bit aged, and indeed it says pictures from years ago, April 2018, it doesn't look like this any longer. And this series of images to get here actually led me to almost an arrest, because there's an entrance on the road down below, which led me to trespassing private property in a military area. Luckily, I sort of managed to get away from here by buying a cheese from local farmers. Anyway, the site itself is a bit abandoned. The star, looks a bit taken by the nature. And to get there from the other side, I have to scratch all my legs and arms. Besides this, what can I say? It's majestic. It dominates completely the Diardap Dam, or Portile First Dam, and it is entitled to the famous politician which started all Spomenik, so it was needed to go. The National Park of Diardap itself, or the other side of the Danube Gorge River, it's amazing. Again, nature is incredible. The road is fantastic. On the way up, after 100 kilometers, I ended up to be in the most beautiful gem of all of Serbia, which is the Golubac Fortress, which ended up to have so many cultures taking over this strategic spot, from Ottomans to Serbians to Hungarians to Habsburg and much more. Inside, you can see all of this great remains from the past of the castle, and indeed is fantastic. Afterwards, I headed to Belgrade, which you have in introduction with these 3 towers. I was there 6 years ago in 2018, and I had chance back then to see the fortress of Kalemegdan and the center, and the famous statue of this guy peeing in front of the Danube. Again, it's fantastic, and here's a picture of me depicting it. The very next day, I took on a highway dedicated to Milos the Great on southwest of Serbia. And the very first destination was a very sad one, possibly the saddest moment, in Potočari Srebrenica Memorial. Here you can see the 8,372 people who died in the genocide in July 1995. I don't want to come to an historic judgment of this. We all know who were responsible. We all know who didn't intervene to help the locals, and we know that the UN should have protected these people. Sadly, it didn't happen, and these people were genocided. On the way to our destination, I stopped by Bajina Basta, which have this very famous house on Drina River. Sadly, I didn't get to Višgrad, because I had a destination to go, which was my 8th Spomenik in Kadinjaca, which is possibly a very iconic one. The Spomenik in Kadinjaca, the number 8 of my own trip, actually offers a plateau dedicated to the Republic of Užice, which is historically the first partisan resistance and opposition which won during the Second World War. The first partisan who defeated and established control over a territory during the Second World War, nearby the city of, again, as I said, Užice. Sadly, such resistance and such partisan republic lasted very narrowly, because the people in Užice, the partisans, were easily outnumbered in the following days. And the whole of effort in Kadinjaca symbolizes the sacrifice these people endured in order to establish freedom and to try to basically overcome the Nazi-Fascist forces. As you can see here soon, the complex is very big, and it comprehends an area extending an entirety of a hill. It dominates the city of Užice, which is, you probably don't see it, but it's on the right down below. And itself, it has been also the scene of a very famous Yugoslav movie called Republic of Užice, made by filmmaker Shika Mitrovic. And it has been also inaugurated by Tito back then during the 1970s. Anyway, the whole famous part of this memorial is this part here, which resembles both a result of a gunshot and either an iris of an eye. Aside from my poses itself, it completely dominates the valley. When you get close to it, you can actually see how majestic it is by just passing in between the rapture itself. And you cannot imagine how big it is. It completely dominates the valley. You can see it from the road down below here on the mountains. And it is so big and so majestic and so wide that it creates a big contrast with the whole rest of the valley itself. I completely recommend you to go, also because itself, it has a sort of like a sacred feeling arising all the time. You walked into there, aside from all the monuments and all the names you can read. Itself, it looks to be like a sort of like a temple. It has, I don't know, a very deep meaning. Whatever comes out from the work of designer Živkovic and Djokic, actually was a very work of art. The Spomenik number 10 I ended up to see in the village of Ostra represents a tribute to some fighters who were killed by Chetniks in the process of retaking the city of Čačak and to retake also Užice, which, again, as I said before, fell into German Nazi hands. But as you can see, the Spomenik is just around there now. There's also this church, which is sort of new next to it. The situation of having a church next to Spomenik was deeply criticized by Živkovic, which was the author of the Spomenik itself. The Spomenik itself looks a bit abandoned in the state of grass, and which wasn't cut too much. Anyway, the whole statue itself is amazing, depicting the struggle and the murder came from Chetniks, which I haven't explained before, but were the nationalist Serb, which sided with Nazi Germany during the occupation. Itself, the statue looks crazy, and also the combination with the church, despite it's criticized and have ambivalence in meaning, brings something else, something which goes beyond the meaning of life, as it mixes up religious life and the martyrdom of the partisan. Of course, partisans probably didn't have like a precise religious affiliation, so I can see why the decision was controversial. Though the place itself, as is also a bit remote, is peculiar. A very unique Spomenik in the whole of list of Spomenik you've seen so far and I've seen so far. And I completely recommend. It's just a small deviation on the road to the next Spomenik, which you'll see soon. And itself, the view is also wow. The next Spomenik was the Spomen Park in Popina. The Spomenik number 11 I ended up to see in Popina. Actually, it's not that far from Spomenik number 10 in Ostra. This one actually gave me a little bit of concern in the very beginning because of a condition that sign at the very beginning we just saw actually was. In any case, I would ever say that the whole monument, the whole site is in a very good condition. It's also has a lot of commemoration. You will see soon some flowers there. It has this incredible triple figure of a triangular shape, a cylindrical shape, and also this shape which reminds of an omega symbol. And aligning itself of they create a sort of like gambaro, like the opening sequence of a James Bond movie, which actually appalled a bit the author, Mr. Bogdan Bogdanovic, which basically try to get away a bit from the whole meaning of having its own art likened to a weapon. In any case, on its own, it celebrates the 40 people who died in the Battle of Popina, part of the battles in the Operation Užice, which happened to be in 1941. And yeah, a lot can be said. I'll have to be honest in here. It's very beautiful. The whole of shape, the geometrical shape is amazing, and I also heavily recommend to get here. Definitely was a surprise in my trip, because it was very surprising with respect to the others and very very beautiful. And yeah, after that, a long trip awaited me to go back to Belgrade. After Popina, I went back to Belgrade, which, by the way, I was hosted by friends there. I ended up having a dinner, but first I ended up seeing places like these ones, which show clearly the troubles of a war, especially the war in Kosovo. The very next day, I went to my Spomenik number 12 of this trip in Kuzmai, which is more or less an hour southern than Belgrade, where actually in the end of year 1941, the Kuzmai Brigade was formed as opposition, as a partisan opposition to the Nazi occupying forces. That army ended up to start with just few dozens of people, but in overall 4 years of occupation, this people of his army ended up to be in a brigade, which at a certain point had 1,000 fighters fighting for the freedom of Yugoslavia. Itself, right now, the situation is of this Spomenik is in a not so optimal condition. As you can see, I met a kid playing. But besides this, there are still flowers, there are still memorial events here. And itself, again, despite the not condition, the shape of this monument, it gives you a dimension of which goes out to space. And besides this, the Spomenik is mountain park, which had a bit of protection status. So I also think that this monument, despite the celebration it has, also sees sometimes a bit of renovation. In general, I met a lot of people here, which also were surprised by my presence. And yeah, I give a great tribute to designers Stojic and Medakovic for this great wonder. After Kosmaya, I went to Croatia. I left Serbia. The first thing I ended up visiting was the memorial cemetery of Vukovar, where actually a lot of victims of the siege of Vukovar in 1981 are buried, and also some heroes for Croatian side are buried as well. Itself, it's a very tough place. The siege of Vukovar lasted many weeks in 1981, and one of the most important places and a symbol of the city itself was this water tower, which was shelled so many times by Yugoslav forces, and the city itself was occupied until 1998. Aside from the Memorial Cemetery and the water tower in Vukovar, which are iconic, those were not my main destination in the city itself. The Spomen Park Dudik in Vukovar stays in the outskirts of the city itself and represents a place where there were 9 mass graves and over 400 people and their bodies especially were found. It's hard to even talk about this, also because even this place, which is a memorial of a mass grave, was bombed during the Croatian War of Independence and the battle siege of Vukovar in August of 1981. Luckily, right now it has been restored like it was in the original shape, with the cones and this symbolic statues. Itself, it's a bit strange right now to go to this park. It looks a bit abandoned. It's next to a football pitch, and well, it's a bit strange for the city of Vukovar, which has so many interesting sites and has so much deep history and division, to be so much abandoned and relatively destroyed. In any case, the site looks nice, better than other sites I've seen. It has been restored. I would ever say it deserves a better fate and a bit more of recognition in a city with so much history. It could be like a good factor to be introduced for a nearby future. Afterwards, I took the highway on direction to this Spomenik. The Spomenik number 14 is in Podgorica, Croatia. It's the monument to the revolution of people of Yugoslavia. It has a particular big meaning for me because aside from all of the poses you see so far, I tried to imitate for years the shape of this monument. On its own, it has a very big meaning. During the puppet state made by Ustasha during the Second World War with help of Nazi Germany, basically while trying to create an ethnically pure state by removing every single opposition to a brutal dictatorship, there were a lot of people which were supposed to be removed by force. The people in this valley in Croatia actually rebelled against the forced rule and this puppet state and tried to organize themselves. And this area became also a big hub for partisans, as is again a bit remote and not easy to get to. As it was a bit remote, it was easy for them to organize together and try to fight over the Nazi-Fascist regime. Itself, it's great. The whole thing of having come here during a sunset made it even better. It's the whole shape itself is dramatic. The whole of having this sort of eye in the middle makes it even more iconic. It looks like an access to a particular crypt where actually it is enclosed into the approach hallway, where the rest of 900 people are buried. And on its own is possibly the most, or one of the 2-3 most iconic Spomenik. By that night I went back to Zagreb. I love Zagreb, it's a very nice city. I was there before, it's always good time to be back there. There's always some curiosity, let's say, to see like this cat or this statue of Franjo Tudjman, or Drazen Petrovic, one of the best basketball player of all time. In any case, it was a good night to be there. The very next day I went to Spomenik in Petrova Gora, which is 1 hour away southern than Zagreb itself. The atmosphere was eerie because the temperature dropped drastically and the weather was tremendously rainy that day. I tried to make it look very nice, but actually I also didn't have the most proper outfit possible for the place. Itself, the whole of the building, it's on the Petrova Gora range mountains, and it's where basically most of people during another time of occupation by Nazi Germany helping local Ustasha government were gathering over here. There was indeed an headquarters here in Male Petrovac Hill, and that's why here were like the first fortification, first infrastructure were done, and also the first hospital was doing. Despite, again, this place is also remote, it's on top of a remote hill, a remote mountain range, which looks close to Zagreb itself, but actually it's not that close. Sadly, also this area came under control of Ustasha. A lot of people were captured or not immediately killed, and that's why just later on there was a possibility to build a memorial on top of this hill itself. The whole amount of needed material to build this monument actually was huge, also to bring it there. The concept itself was very difficult to do, and also it ended up to be having issues during the Yugoslav wars, especially during the Serbian Krajina, the Serb state within Croatia, as this site basically was completely falling under such territory. And also the ownership today is still unclear. And the building itself has been closed because it was there was a lot of vandalism, and it's a bit in a bit of dismay. In any case, it's a must-see place. It was my last Spomenik, this whole great trip, and definitely it was my very last memory before living once and for all the Balkans. There has been many attempts to restore credibility and to preserve, especially the history of this place, also in artistic terms. But basically, this place is also on the border of 3 diverse municipalities, and apparently it will probably take a lot of money to restore it fully in the great shape it once was. So I don't know if there will be enough funding for making it coming back like it was once upon a time. So let's see. For now, it was very eerie to be here. The atmosphere was amazing, despite being a bit cold and taking really a lot of toll on my body. After Petrova Gora, I approached back Italy. I had a quick break stop in Trieste. Basically, afterwards, I just approached home because I was very tired. Here are my personal conclusions. It's hard to define this trip. This was graphically the whole trip, 6907 kilometers. When I was home, I was completely tired. I was lucky enough to not have any major issue with a car in all of the almost 7,000 kilometers. For Christmas, 2 months later, I ordered this book, which is a Spomenik monument database, which got to my house. Oh, sorry, by the way, for the mess in my flat. Anyway, as you can see here, there's a lot of Spomenik, whereas in the cover itself there are also the GPS indications and coordinates. Itself represents some of the Spomenik we saw together and many others which I hadn't had the privilege to get to. But what are our conclusions? This tiny Krushevo or this magnet from Dintište? Of course not. My own personal conclusion is the following. Yugoslavia was once this country in red. Right now it doesn't exist. It's just 7 diverse countries. The Spomenik do exist today. Not in Yugoslavia, but in 7 diverse countries. But I want to keep in my heart the lesson from Spomenik. I want to be positive, I want to be optimist. These monuments were supposed to overcome as well the tragedies, the brutality of humanity and inspire a new generation towards a better future. That's what I stand for. That's why I want all these monuments one day to get to UNESCO and maybe unite somehow a bit a country that doesn't exist any longer. Is it foolish to be optimist despite a tense present and a tremendous past? I don't know. I'll let you have a conclusion on that. Regardless, I'll be optimist anyway.